the danger is in our decisions. We're probably likely to underemphasize the risk on things we like or feel comfortable with, and possibly overemphasize the risk on things that don't feel good.
The question is from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Graham from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Paul from Thinking Focus.
And today's the question is, what really makes leaders good at decisions?
Interesting. Yeah, because I think like you and I have worked with probably hundreds of people over the years in leadership positions. And I think if we'd have done a little study of asking them all what makes them great decision makers, my guess is that most of them had gone, I was born to make decisions. It's a skill I have. It's a trait of my personality. It's all about me.
Yeah, and I think I probably, we started out in working in organizations. You see some people who are great at making decisions and you just kind of go, they're good because they're good. It's kind of an inherent thing that they've got. So are we saying that's not entirely true or not true at all?
No, I don't think it's true at all, actually. And so what the research is telling us, there's some great research by Bruin de Bruin, Parker and Fishkoff that introduces this idea of a decision-making competence. And actually it's skills. It's things that we do in the way we make decision that make us better as decision makers, not kind of natural talents in decision making. It's not, no one's kind of born to do this. Now, I'm going to caveat with that with, I think some personality types will do these things more naturally and easier than other personality types. But they came up with these six areas to think about. And across those 6 areas, what we're really saying here is if you can do all 6 of these things reasonably well, your decision-making capability as a leader, or your decision-making competence, I guess, as a leader, will be stronger. If you've got weakness in 1 or 2 of those areas, it's going to affect the way you make decisions in certain circumstances.
Yeah, but I guess the good thing whenever I hear the word competence in that kind of concept or context rather is surely then that means it can be developed. So that's a good thing then.
Yeah, and that's why I like this framework, because even though what they were doing is trying to create a measure, they were trying to create a way of assessing leaders' ability to make decisions. I think we can flip it around the other way and go, well, in these 6 areas, how do I get better at these things? How do I do these things? So it's probably worth running through the 6, and we talk about them individually. And I don't think you need to think of them as necessarily as a whole collective of I have to do all 6. You can go, in these 6, where am I weak? Which ones do I want to focus on?
Before we dive into the 6, Paul, is there I guess that's a level of detail. Are there some general things about what makes someone a competent decision maker? Like, are there things about assessing information or those kind of things? Or are they going to come out in the 6 factors?
They do come out in the 6 as well. But I think a couple of things that are worth talking about. One is, one of the things their research sort of shows us is firstly, it's not necessarily linked to intelligence.
Okay.
And so
that's good news for me then.
Yeah, but I think it's good news for all of us in the fact that, again, there is a belief that, super bright people must be great decision makers. And it turns out that's just not true at all. You can be super bright and fall foul to these 6 areas really easily. And in fact, actually one of the areas I think super bright people they don't walk into, they run into it face first most of the time. And so decision making is not I've got to be bright. It's 3 kind of traits that they see regularly with really good decision makers. So the first one is a thinking style. How rational is your thinking style? So the more intuitive you are, the more likely you are to go with your gut, the more likely you are to make what I'd call system 1 type decisions. It's very instinctive decisions, which, by the way, aren't going to be wrong all the time. It doesn't mean you're terrible all the time, but it means the second you wander from your sphere of expertise, you're going to start making mistakes. The second decisions get more complex, system 1's going to make really fast, rapid, instant, protective decisions. It's not going to make long-term strategic choices for you. It doesn't do.
And that's they're more we tend to say they're more the emotional thinking side of things. So you're saying moving away from that. If we can move from system 1, using that language, from system 1 to system 2, rational thinking is going to help us with the decision makings.
Yes, very much so. The second area you see is great decision makers have got some level of reflection. So they're learning from decisions they made. They're going back and looking at what they've done and thinking about, well, why did I make that decision and what's going on there and
Yeah.
what drove that. And again, a lot of super bright people don't do that. They kind of just go next, 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 next.
Yeah. Do you think that the reflection piece, again, my observation of people, sweeping statement, often is we only reflect when things go wrong. So if I've made a bad decision, am I more likely to reflect on that than if I've made a good decision?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I'm sure there is some research that would show that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I think you go back to, all humans are inherently negatively biased.
Yeah.
I love that expression of, your brain is, I can't think of the guy's name. Your brain is Teflon for good things and Velcro for bad things.
Okay. Yeah.
I just love that idea of kind of, if you make a bad decision, we are more likely to sit down and reflect on it. The difference between really good decision makers, though, and kind of not so good decision makers is that reflection is constructive reflection. It's like, okay, so I got that wrong. Why did I get that wrong? What were the implications of getting that wrong? What can I do about that in the future? That kind of what now what style of reflection.
Yeah.
Whereas most of us don't. We sit down and go, I'm a terrible person. I can't believe I did that. I should never be allowed.
How about this? This
Yeah.
was the worst decision of my life.
Yeah. And that leads to the third thing that we see in great decision makers. This is emotional regulation. Good decision makers are able to have a level of emotional intelligence and control their emotions and understand their emotions. And again, one of the great starting places for being good at anything complex is to go, do you at least have an awareness of your emotional state? You might not be able to regulate it. You might not be able to control it or use it. But step one is, can you just put a name on it?
Yeah.
Can you just go, oh, yeah, I actually right now I do feel unhappy, or I do feel uncomfortable, or I do feel happy, or I do feel gleeful, or I do feel proud, and I think that's a really important start. The other thing that we're thinking about before we dive into the six is that age is an advantage here. So again, what the research says is that as we get older, our decision making gets slightly better, and that probably comes from the fact that we often become a bit more rational with experience, and we definitely become a bit more reflective as we get older, and we slow down a little bit, and we become a bit more emotionally intelligent. Well, some of us do anyway.
Hang on. Have you met me?
But typically, we chill out a little bit as we get older.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some of us it's going to take longer than others, but you'll get there.
Thanks. What, when I get to your age?
Yeah. Thanks. So do you want to talk about the six now? These 6 areas in no particular order.
You want to be away from the age thing, don't you?
No, I'm just not doing good emotional regulation now. You've upset me.
So let's move on then, Paul.
Moving on. Yeah.
So what? You said 6 of them. Are they ranked in a particular order? Or are they all of equal importance?
All of equal importance. They kind of overlap a little bit in places, but they kind of all fit quite nicely together. So starting it, actually every time I write these down, I tend to write them in different order. They may be a real order, and I don't know about it. So if somebody listening to this goes, no, the order is this, I apologise profusely. These are just in the order that I've written them down today.
I might just wait till you've done all 6, and then tell you the order's wrong, and then just put another order in.
Do you want me just to read all 6 out first, and then we'll go through them?
Why not? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and then I can talk about them in a completely different order. So the first one is, I'm just going to do them randomly now, just to confuse you. The first one is resistance to framing. So this is the concept of the way information is presented creates a frame, and that frame might not be helpful to the decision. So can you?
I thought you were going to list them and then go into them.
Oh, okay. All right, I will list them: resistance to framing, resistance to sunk costs, consistency in risk perception, ability to apply decision rules, under or overconfidence, so managing your levels of confidence, and the recognition of social norms. I probably need to explain those now because they mean nothing.
Yes, please.
I should have just done it.
Maybe you should go into a bit of detail as you're doing it.
Which one would you like to start with?
Why don't we start with what was the one around something about risk?
So consistency and risk perception.
Yeah.
So what this is really saying is, are we able to evaluate risk in a kind of structured, repeatable approach. Because we often talk about this, that there's sort of from a cognitive point of view, there's a difference between sort of scary and dangerous,
Yeah.
and that system 2 is really a good risk calculator. It's, well, what's the risk involved here, and how much risk is involved here, and what's the likelihood of that risk happening. And system 1 is going, oh, that's terrifying. Oh, that feels great here.
Everything's going to kill me.
Yeah. And those two things don't necessarily correlate. It doesn't mean that risky things are scary. Sometimes risky things are not scary. We've done them a million times. And often in the workplace, when accidents happen, that's because you're doing something of high risk with high comfort. You're not scared by it anymore. And therefore you're not doing the right things. So I think all of us can appreciate, if it's high risk and really scary, we're probably likely to react. And if it's low risk and not scary, we're probably not likely to react. But there's two other positions here where it feels really scary but is low risk.
Yeah.
Which is almost where growth happens, because that's where we learn and grow. You think about anything you've done that you've grown from, is not particularly risky. Hopefully, doing a training course or even like something dangerous like learning to drive. They're not gonna take you on your first lesson and go, well, you can make the car move. Let's just go down the M1. It's like that's not how these things start.
Although you see some people on the M1 driving, and you would imagine that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, that's true. But we get the point, is that often we're in positions that feel terrifying and aren't particularly risky. I would argue for my defense, roller coasters are like that for me. Whereas there are other people who don't find them scary at all, and therefore don't realise that you are supposed to put the safety belt on and strap yourself in. There is some risk. That's also in my defense. This is why I don't do roller coasters. But you so that's playing out. And so if we're using intuition, or we're using system 1, or we're using sort of our reaction to risk, the danger is in our decisions. We're probably likely to underemphasize the risk on things we like or feel comfortable with, and possibly overemphasize the risk on things that don't feel good. One of the ways I see this playing out a lot when people make decisions is, any project you've ever worked on, at some point it's going to get hard. There's a point in anything that's worth doing. It's difficult. I know loads of people whose reaction to that is, let's just go in a different direction. Let's just start something new. And this is what they're doing. They've got a poor consistency in their risk perception. They're going, this new thing, which feels bright and shiny, and I don't really understand it, feels quite safe. And this thing that I understand in detail feels quite hard and risky. So let's not do the risky one. Let's do the safe one. And you go, well, that's not what's going on here at all. You're going known risk versus unknown risk.
So which of these did you apply when you thought, I'll invite Graham along to a podcast today?
Yeah, I think that's turning out to be an unknown risk. I think as we go, you sort of see the point how this is playing out. That actually really good decision makers have consistency in their risk perception, and one of the ways they do that is by applying very rational criteria to risk. And so at the simplest level, if we were working with somebody and we were looking at risk, we would go, right, start grading the risk on a maybe a 1 to 5,
some kind of scale.
5 high risk, 1 low risk, and then. But I'd also grade the impact. 5 big impact, 1 low impact. If you multiply those two numbers together, you get between 1 and 25. And then quite simply, you go over 16. That's a high risk thing. You need to manage it really well. 9 to 16, medium risk. Under 9, low risk. So but it's a rational way of approaching the risk. And the more people you can involve in that, if you're not sure about a risk, go and ask experts. Go and ask other people.
Yeah.
Because again, we
have a different appetite for risk as well, don't we? So something that you might see as risky, I might not, and vice versa. Yeah,
and sometimes that's based on knowledge and experience. So you don't see it as risky because you've done it 20 times before, and you've got a level of understanding of it. But sometimes that's based on one of the other criteria here, which is under and overconfidence. Which is because I don't fully understand the risk, I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about that one then, Paul. So something about under and overconfidence.
So under and overconfidence is really looking at, do we actually know what we know? Do we understand what our limitations are? Do we understand what the boundaries of our knowledge are? Can we calibrate? Do you know what? In this position, I understand this bit, I understand this bit. I don't really understand this bit. I think I understand this bit, but I don't really understand this bit. And therefore, I'm the sense I have of this being maybe low risk or easy or a good answer is probably not a real sense.
Yeah.
And typically, again, there's a number of cognitive biases to play out here, but typically we have a habit for most of us to understand overestimate our own capability and underestimate other people's capability.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, under pressure, we might underestimate our own capability. And again, we've seen that, I'm sure you've seen it in your coaching. I know I have, of where you meet people who basically go, I don't think I can do this. And then you go,
Yeah.
well, what's that based on? And they talk through, well, the last 20 times I've done it, it went wrong one time. You go, sorry,
Yeah.
so you've done it 19 times successfully.
Yeah.
You can do this. So,
Yeah.
so again, it's this ability. It's not saying you have to be overconfident or underconfident. It's basically saying, can you gauge those reactions well? Can
Yeah.
you see when you're being underconfident about this and do something about it?
Which might give you which might give you then, I guess, this at one end is this overconfidence, which has that impact or has a potential impact on these kind of things, and the other end might then be the underconfidence, but actually that gives us excessive caution.
Yes. And I think one of the useful ways of doing this is to, again, go from I can do this, I can't do this, go from a binary approach to something a bit more nuanced. So even if you just went percentages, I'm 80% sure I can do this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what would make you 90?
Yeah.
Why aren't you 60? You've called it an 80.
Yeah.
You've got some kind of rationale, and what we see in great decision makers, and what the research saw in these great decision makers, their ability to kind of have that conversation either out loud with the team or in their head very quickly to go, well, yeah, why do I think I can do this? Well, I've done it 20 times
Yeah.
before. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, it's a really good indication. So so there's something around risk. There's something about confidence.
Yeah.
You mentioned, it sounds like it was a time you talked about something about decision rules, applying rules to things. What's that one about?
So again, these are all fairly linked. It's when you're making a decision, apply all the criteria equally to all the options. And again, you would have come across people doing this when they're making decisions where they go, well, this one works because we like it, and this one is terrible
because I don't like it.
Yeah, why is it terrible? So it's again, it's going back to saying, can I apply equally the criteria that I'm using to make this decision to all options fairly and equally? But also the other part of it for me is, can I use criteria? So can I actually have a rational approach to decision making? Because if I start applying criteria to it, if I'm scoring it against 3 or 4 characteristics or applying the same set of rules to it, I can't do that intuitively. I'm having to now rationalize it and think about it. And what you're seeing a lot of these decision-making competencies is, my words, not their words, they force you to engage system 2.
Yeah.
There's no kind of inner mind magic 8 ball playing out here. It's all right, why am I making this decision? What's involved in it? It's this. Right, these are the criteria. So option A, how does it score? Option B, how does it score? Option C, how does it score? It's those kind of things. And then you can, once you've got good decision rules, you can do tricks like going, well, if I think the right answer is X, what's the opposite to X? Okay, I think we should do X, but we could do nothing. All right, now I can apply my criteria to do nothing and go, does that come out better? Does it come out worse?
So do you think we started kind of talking about is decision making inherent? So do you think those people who perhaps have that awareness that they make good decisions, do you think they're doing all this stuff but probably aren't aware they're doing it? So in terms of applying these kind of rules and criteria, when someone says, "Oh, I've got a really good gut feel about something," do you think it is gut feel, or do you think there's this stuff's going on in the background?
That is a really good question. I suspect that it relates back to this kind of idea of mastery, because intuition is quite good when you have mastery.
Yeah,
I think the risk that you have is if you ask. I'm just going to use myself as an example here. If you ask me to make a decision about something I've never really thought about, but it's in the area of psychology where I've got a deep level of understanding and I've spent a lot of time thinking, working it, then I probably, I am doing these things in the background, maybe slightly intuitively, and I get a gut feel from doing these things, and it works. The problem then is you could then take me to, I don't know, sociology or economics, other social sciences, and my overconfidence will kick in and go, well, it feels the same as X. And you go, well, is it really the same as X?
Yeah.
And so this idea of mastery creep that we all have in the workplace, which is I'm really good at this bit, I'm therefore quite good at the next bit out, and I'm pretty good at the next bit out. And well, how many layers before actually I'm just an ignorant numpty
Yeah.
who believes I'm quite good at it because I feel 2 steps removed from what I am quite good at.
They sound like good band names: Mastery, Creep, and Ignorant Numpty. Make a note of those.
Yeah. But when we go back to the 90s.
Yeah. Okay, so there's something about applying rules.
Yeah.
You mentioned something around you used about sunk costs, resistance to sunk costs, I think.
Yeah.
Was
So
the phrase.
there's two resistance ones. So the one resistance to sunk costs. So you understand this idea of sunk cost, Graham, the idea that basically we create an attachment or an investment in everything we've done up to date. So effort, time, resources, all of that creates this kind of investment in the past that's hard to let go of. Great decision makers.
I can't stop it because I've done all this already.
Yeah. Well, the classic, the sort of classic one, I think it's a Kahneman example where he talks about you've bought tickets for a play. You want to go and see this play. You spent a lot of money. You spent £200 a ticket. You and your wife are going.
What play am I going to see? That's
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say the kind of play you would go and see on the podcast, Graham. It's probably not good. But you got 200. You spent the money on the play. You get to the night of the play. There's heavy snow. There's travel advisories. It tells you not to go. Do you go or don't you go?
Depends what the play is.
Yeah. But the reality is, the reason for wanting to go is because you spent the money on the tickets. But the money's gone. You're never getting it back. It's not. It's not part of the decision process. The decision process should be: can I get to the play on time? Can I get there safely? Can I get home without crashing the car and killing the family type thing?
Which goes back to me risk stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's that risk perception. Yeah.
And so it's but sunk costs kind of cause us to focus on what was and not what is.
Yeah.
And what you find is good decision makers kind of ignore what was. They go clean slate. This is where we are. Is this a good decision? What we see in the corporate world quite a lot is people who can't do this, can't let go of decisions they've made. And so you very often, and I think we've all experienced this, seen a project that's kind of overstayed its welcome. The leader leaves, the new guy comes in who has no attachment to the past and can kill it instantly.
Yes.
Because without that emotional connection, without that sort of sunk cost fallacy and the investment in sunk costs, I'm just making a decision of, right, we need to spend 100 grand on IT. Is this piece of software that's never going to work worth 100 grand? No, actually, everybody would be better off with a new laptop.
Yeah.
I'll do that. so that, it's a resistance to sunk costs.
And what was you said the two resistances?
The other one is framing. And so the way information is presented to us creates a frame. So a really good example of this from healthcare. You can have an operation, Graham. Yeah. I can, as the surgeon, I'm not the surgeon, but I could, as the surgeon, imagine me in a white coat and stethoscope, could come in and go, all right, Graham, this is before we go in surgery, I need you to sign some forms. I need to let you know that on this operation, there's a 5% chance of death.
Right, yeah.
How do you feel about the operation now?
Well, I've got trust in you because you're wearing a white coat.
Yeah, the authority bias. This stuff. We'll play into that one another podcast. But I could have said there's a 95% survival rate.
Yeah. Yes.
They are the same information. They change the way you react to them.
And that's really interesting because, as you know, kind of outside of work, we've had something with a family member recently, and it was to do with an operation. And I'm trying to think, and I think it was couched in terms of success rate. But I think the decisions when outside of that hospital environment then went to, but that then means I think it was like an 80% success rate.
Yeah.
And I think the discussions then focus on that means there's a 20% chance it won't work, and therefore.
Yes.
So it is interesting. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think healthcare professionals have been taught a lot about this kind of framing. Yeah. And it plays out in other places. You go into a restaurant and you look at the wine list, the price of the top bottle of wine, the bottom bottle of wine are creating a frame for what is the price of wine in this restaurant. And so suddenly you're heading to the middle, not going, is this midpoint a reasonable price for this wine? You're just going, well, that's the middle and that's therefore.
Yeah.
So framing happens all the time to us. Think about that in the workplace. People come in and go, we've got to make this decision today.
Yes.
Now, how many times does somebody say, okay, why today? Why this decision? Why now? What's that all about? Often we just pick up the frame and we run with it. Great decision makers are resistant to the frame. They look at it through
Yeah.
multiple frames. If you come in and go, this project's got a 70% chance of success, they're going to go, okay, that sounds interesting. Great. Talk to me about the 30% downside. What would happen in those scenarios? Because if you go 70% chance of success and it gives us a slight improvement, 30% chance of failure and the company ceases to exist.
Yes. Yeah.
So resistance to framing is another one. And that links
Yeah.
quite nicely to the sixth and last. I hope we've done six and I haven't missed
Yes.
any.
I'll be ticking them off.
Which is recognizing social norms. So it's kind of understanding how much peer pressure and culture and the sort of environment plays out in our decision making, and then being able to step back and say, well, can I see what that is doing to the decision?
Yeah.
Am I thinking about how people are going to react to this decision? Am I thinking about what my boss is going to say? Am I thinking about the way people are going to respond to this decision? Am I thinking about what people are going to think about this decision? Am I trying to appease people before I've even made the decision? All of that, and particularly when we start applying what we think other people think in this situation.
Yes. Yeah.
Because very often we get that wrong. We're relying on very small subsets of data, and you have to be really careful in any walk of life, but particularly in business, that there are always vocal minorities. There are always a small group of very vocal people who will tell you why things right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yes.
And present it as if everybody thinks.
Yeah. Everybody thinks the same as I do. Do they really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, can you as a good decision maker, when people go, well, everybody's thinking we should do this.
Is it everybody?
Is it everybody? As I think FIFA are finding out today at the time we're recording the podcast. Really? Is it everybody? I think you might find out it's not everybody. It's just the people you're talking to. So can you recognize those social norms and then factor them in? It might be they're relevant. It might be they're not. And this is the really interesting thing about these 6 things. If you think about resistance to framing, it's not saying throw out the frame. It's saying be aware of the frame. Don't let it guide your decision. Resistance to some costs. So not saying ignore the past. It's saying that shouldn't affect the decision.
Yeah, and those 6 characteristics sound great, and we've talked about emotional and rational. So I can imagine if we kind of sit here trying to make a decision, and there's no kind of real pressure on us to do that. But does decision making change under pressure?
Yes. I mean, and again, I think what pressure does is it causes us to try and speed all these things up and therefore ignore some of these things. Because again, the thing when I'm working with people around these topics, the thing people often say to me is, "I don't have time."
Yeah.
And I was at a conference this week, and there was one of the speakers was talking about a situation. It was a police situation. Was talking about one of his old bosses. I guess it was a chief constable or a very senior police officer, who sometimes in the middle of a crisis would just walk away for like a minute and then come back. Just go in a room and think and come back. And it is his way of going, I need to create a modicum of space. And we imagine that when we create a modicum of space, I need a day, I need 48 hours, I need a week. He was taking a minute in a high pressure situation to go, actually, I just need a little bit of time to stop and think through all these things without somebody adding more data and adding more information and demanding a decision. He did it by walking away. And I thought, as I heard the speaker talk about it, I thought that's a very kind of clever thing to be able to do as a leader, just to go, right, just give me a sec.
Yeah, and I just think you mentioned that kind of from a police point of view, but from an emergency responder type point of view, which if you imagine making critical decisions, I don't know, let's say there's a fire, that kind of situation. We don't actually make lots of decisions in that moment because we've already done the thinking in advance, haven't we? Which is why we have evacuation protocols and all those kind of things. And if you're ever work in a building long enough, you'll have gone through a fire drill and all those kind of things. So it means you don't have to. I guess all that rational thinking's been done.
They're trying to do pre-decision for you. In this situation, do X, and I think that's true in a lot of our roles as well. We're taught to pre-decide a lot of kind of common things.
Yeah.
What we're really talking about here, though, is the the big. I mean, again, it's we talk about decision making. This sort of a theory, hard to prove, probably not true. That the average leader makes 35,000 decisions in a day.
Mm.
But the reality is, even if it is true, that ranges from strategic imperative decision about the future of our business and biscuit, should I have a
Yeah.
biscuit? Not all decisions are equal. Do you need to apply social norms and decision rules and
Yeah.
framing around having a biscuit? No,
Yeah.
have a biscuit. And if you're eating too
Yeah.
many biscuits, pre-decide and get them out of your office. It's like, but so we're really talking about the bigger end of the spectrum here.
Yeah, yeah. So are there, as we think through all that, then are there some kind of practical things that can help build stronger decision making kind of capability? We've talked about it being a competence. So we've got those 6 things we can think about. What are, if you to boil it down into a few practical things, what would they be?
I think what number one on my list is kind of recognize that system one is great in instant decisions on things it's not great at big strategic decisions, and therefore being able to slow yourself down, even if it is for a moment, even if it is
Yeah.
just for 30 seconds, being able to put some criteria around things, being able to move yourself into your rational mind will always cause you to make a better decision. And number two, I think all those 6 areas are really kind of de-risking you from bias, from cognitive
Yeah.
bias. So I would say go and educate yourself around bias. Go and understand where the human mind goes wrong on a regular basis. You don't need to be a master of it, but just some basic bias education, a good book on bias. I always go with Rolf DeBelly's The Art of Thinking Clearly, because I just think it's a really easy to read, good book that covers, I think, 99 of the most common biases we face in the workplace. It's just a good place to start. But you could go to the Wikipedia has a great bias codec. There's lots of free things you could do. Some basic bias education, that would be number 2. And then number 3, and this is slightly different. I would go, as you're going through the decision, just capture all your assumptions. Capture everything you think needs to be true. If you can, work out which ones are facts and which ones are just generally, I fingers crossed this is true,
Yeah.
type thing. Because then you've got some way of, again, looking back at that decision as things go on and go, well, actually, is this playing out in the way that we thought it would based on the assumptions? So I think those 3 things: slow it down a little bit, educate yourself on bias, which is kind of something in advance, and then just write down all the assumptions. Just capture all the things that need to be true for your decision to work, and it will start to really change the way your decision-making processes work.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that. And some fascinating stuff as always in all of that. Key question then, Paul, is will these competencies, will the stuff that you've told me help me when I'm making a decision that my wife might not agree with?
No. Yeah.
Do I just then default to happy wife, happy life?
Yeah, I think resistance to framing, not going to help you in that scenario. Yeah, the frame is, I'm going to ask your opinion. Before I ask, here is the answer to the question.
Thank you for that. So some good stuff there. So decision-making competence means we can develop it. It's the ability to make sound judgments and do it consistently, particularly in times of uncertainty, risk, and pressure. Helps with those things. There's those 6 core capabilities in there. So 6 things we can kind of focus on. And if I always hesitate going, if we can get better at it, maybe better's not quite the right word, but if we can get better at this kind of stuff, it's going to give us a clear advantage. Certainly, I mean, as leaders of business, gives us a clear advantage in terms of how we do things, reducing that stuff around bias and all that kind of stuff that you've talked about.
By the way, I like better as a word, because I don't think you're terrible at it right now. I don't mean you, Graham, but I mean generally. I don't think people are terrible at it. Again, we work with business all the time, and they go, "We're really bad at decision making." And I go, "Have you gone bust yet?" No, we're business is doing okay. So you're not that bad at it then. Right? You're hitting your numbers, everything's working, people are happy here. So just give yourself some credit. So I don't think you're terrible at it, and I also don't think you need to be perfect at it. I think the world is complex and difficult, and being perfect, that's a bar that's too high and comes with its own set of problems, which is a whole podcast.
Yeah.
in its own right. I just think you need to be better.
Yeah, and so then it becomes more then about thinking clearly enough to make the best decision with the information you have available, I guess.
To find out how Thinking Focus can unlock the potential within your organisation, go to www.thinkingfocus.com, where you'll discover more about the work we do, helping our clients increase productivity and enable change.